Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Hukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta. Ahavat olam, Beit Israel, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Hukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta.
Shabbat Shalom! Shabbat Shalom. So wonderful to be with you on this lovely Friday evening, at least here in the Los Angeles area. Hope it's lovely wherever you are. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Cantor Paul Bush, serving here at Temple Beth Israel with Rabbi Jonathan Kupitz. Rabbi is not with us this evening, but between Randy Polvoy, our wonderful accompanist, and myself, we hope to offer you a rich and meaningful Shabbat experience. So if you're on Facebook with us, please don't hesitate to share what you care to in the chat on Facebook. If you are on Zoom or another medium, we welcome you there as well. We're going to start off with Shalom Aleichem. For those of you who have a Siddur, we're on page 24. If you don't have a Siddur and you want to follow along with this service, I don't know if we're able to put the link in the chat right at this moment, but you can always go to just Google CCAR Press. There you'll find a link to the Mishkan Tefillah Siddur. You can download a copy in PDF form, you can get a Kindle ebook version, or you may just want for a quick reference to use what they call the flipbook version, which is available assuming that you have maybe another tablet or a computer. You can follow along in the flipbook version. And I'll be sharing with you page numbers as we go along. In our regular regular prayer book, as I said, we're on page 24. That also translates to page 142 in the larger editions. And we invite you to join us in our song of welcome, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rochem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Huni L'Shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Seitchem L'Shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, melech malchei amlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Shalom aleichem, shalom aleichem, malachei hasharet, malachei elyon, mi melech, malchei amlachim, hakadosh, hakadosh, baruch hu. As you may notice, our Shabbat candles, the Nerot Shel Shabbat, are already lit from our family service that took place about an hour ago. So if you have not lit your Shabbat candles at home, I invite you to prepare to do that. We will be on page 2 and 3 in our Siddur. I invite those who are here or at home to please rise as we say the bracha, say the blessing for our Shabbat candles, beginning with a reading on page 3. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle lights. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. May be seated. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this holy community in need, all who bring their offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. So I don't know what it was for you, but for those of us who live in the LA area, specifically in our little area of the San Gabriel and Inland Valleys, we last Shabbat after services, we suffered probably the most devastating windstorm that's taken place in many, many years. People talk about, I remember back in '84. Well, I wasn't around in '84. I do remember about 10 years ago we had quite a ruach, quite a strong wind blew through here, but nothing like what we've experienced over the evening and into Saturday last weekend. Fortunately, most of us have recovered. There wasn't any particular damage to anyone that we're connected with in our community that we know of, although the loss of some very large trees in front of our property here at TBI is certainly noticeable as you drive in the driveway, as well as you drive around Claremont, Pomona, even into Upland and some parts of Rancho and Ontario, tremendous damage. So as we kind of reflect at some of those stresses, the difficulties of that, coupled with a number of other difficulties in recent days and in the last couple of weeks, just to kind of take a deep breath and see if we can clear that from our consciousness, just so that we can enter into this Shabbat with a new sense of hope, of peace, and of serenity and security. And after just a brief moment, we'll continue with Lecha Dodi, which you'll find in the Siddur on pages on 20 in our regular Siddur, and if you have a bigger edition, a broader edition, page 138. As is our custom, we'll sing verses 1, 3, 5, and 9, Lecha Dodi. We welcome the Sabbath bride. Lecha Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Ishme'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'litchilat la 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 la. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Likrat Shabbat Lechuven Elcha, Ki Makor HaBracha, Merosh Mikedem Nisucha. So Ma'aseh b'Shabbat Chilat la 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 la. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Hitoreri, Kiva Orech, Kumi Uri, Shedaveri, Kivod Adonai Alayich, la 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 la. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Boi v'shalom, Ateret Bala, Gam b'simcha uv'tzola, Toch emunei am segula, Boi Kala, Ya la 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 la. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. La 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 la. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat Nekabela. We continue on page 26 with the transition from the opening part of our service to opening part to a little bit deeper into the core with our call to prayer. And before that, we mark that transition with our Chatzi Kaddish. page 26 or 144. It gadal v'yikadal shemei Rabbah ve'almad yivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei ve'chayekonu yom echol u'chayedecho bet Yisrael Bagala ubizman karim veimeru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mivarach le'olam u'lamei almayah yitbarach ve'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar v'yirobam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran ve'alma Veimeru. Amen. If you are able, we invite you to rise for our call to prayer for Baruch Hu. You'll find that on pages 28 or 146. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Ha'ed. You may be seated. Last three lines on page 30, 148. El Chai v'Kayam Tamidim l'chaleinu le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Hamariv Aravim. Page 32 and 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Last four lines on the Hebrew. Ve'ahavatecha atasir mimenu leolamim Baruch atah Adonai Oyamo Yisrael. So as our young men and women at Temple Beth Israel become B'nai Mitzvah, one of the things that they have an opportunity to do before their big day is to get some Bima experience, get some time up on at the Amud here and leading us in prayer. And with that in mind, I'd like to invite Scarlett Vandegrift to lead us in Shema and Ve'ahavta.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. I invite Scarlett to lead us in Ve'ahavta on page 36 or 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher nochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha vidibarta bam vivshiteha vetecha bevetecha vaderech uvshoch bacha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yedecha v'hayu totafot Beineinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha laman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher tzeithi etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lehiyot lechem Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem, amen. Thank you, Scott. At each service, we take a moment to remember Litziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt. We've just within the last couple of weeks, as we've gone through our Torah cycle, our Torah reading cycle, we've experienced both slavery and now have crossed through the Reed Sea to a newfound freedom, and the Israelites are trying to figure out what to do with it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. as we look at our weekly Torah portion for this week, Mishpatim. But we always recall the Exodus from Egypt with our Micha Mocha prayer. And those of you who have Sidurim, I invite you to turn to page 40 in the regular edition or 158 and join with us for Micha Mocha. Micha Mocha, Bailimar Micha Mocha, Bedar Bakodesh, Nora Tehilot, Osei Felan. Micha Mocha, Bailimar Micha Mocha, Bedar Bakodesh, Nora Tehilot, Osei Felan. Malchutcha ra'u v'anecha, Bokeam libnei Moshe u'Miriam. Ze'eli anu. Ve'amru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Micha Mocha, Bailim Adonai, Micha Mocha, Nedar Bakodesh, Nora Tehilot, Osei Felan. Nora Tehilot, Osei Felan. Nora Tehilot, Osei Felan. V'ne'emar Kifadar Adonai et Yaakov Ugalo me'ad Chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. We take this opportunity to invoke the Holy One's blessing on a evening of peace and tranquility, that we may lie down in peace and that we may rise up renewed. Our Hashkivenu prayer, which is found on 42 and 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Ve'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Ve'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukan shomecha ushmot zetenu uvoenu. Ufros aleinu sukan shlomecha ushmor zetenu uvoenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Odenu Shomreinu Lechaim. Baruch atah Adonai Haporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We go to the next page to offer our gratitude for the gift of Shabbat with Vishamru. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam brit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam brit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai, et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz, u'vayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam brit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. We now transition into the core liturgy of any Jewish service, the Amidah, with words that ask God to open our hearts to express ourselves with clarity and sincerity. I'll invite Scarlett back up to lead us in Adonai Svatai and Avot in Gevurot. If you're following along, we're on page 46 in the Shabbat Sidur, 164 in the larger edition, and I invite Scarlett to lead us.
Adonai Sefatai Tivtach Ufia Gita Hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomil Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, Umevigulal Livnei Vneihem, Lama'an Shemo B'Hava, Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, V'zorat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol atah, Rav Lahoshia. Mashiv HaRuach, Umerid HaGashim, Mechokeh Chayim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Barachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofchei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar. Micha Mocha Baal Geverot, Umido Melech, Melech Memid, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah l'chachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol.
Page 52. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. So we'll take a few moments for some personal reflection, as has become our custom over the past 2 years almost of our virtual services, is that Randy Polivoy gets to offer a musical selection. So after a brief period of meditation, Randy will introduce what he's going to do for us today to uplift our hearts and our spirits. So. Dr. Polivoy.
Thank you, Cantor Paul. Shabbat Shalom to everybody out there as I get accustomed to speaking with this mask on as we are live streaming live from TBI. So, this piece from the classical repertoire is sort of my go-to piece. I've played it numerous times before. The Schubert Impromptu, one of the Schubert Impromptus anyway, which has kind of a spiritual quality to it, even though Schubert was not Jewish. He obviously on this piece sort of imbued this piece with just a beautiful spirituality and prayerfulness that I think is conveyed. And I, in the interest of time, of course, have cut the piece down just to keep it short. But I hope you get this quality, enjoy the piece, the Schubert Impromptu in G-flat.
Toda Rabbah, Randy. Thank you so much for that beautiful contribution. So as I mentioned earlier, this week's Torah portion is Parashat Mishpatim. Mishpatim are, I guess, translated pretty accurately as ordinances. They're laws and precepts that are I guess, designed to be logically comprehensible. They make sense pretty much on the surface. This is opposed to another type of law or ordinance or mitzvah, which are called chukim. A chok is something that perhaps is more or less easy to comprehend as to its reasoning, as to its purpose, but they are of equal weight. But this week's portion is focused on Mishpatim. And I think if you went to count them, there are 53 laws in this Torah portion, 53 directions, 53 holy opportunities, as we like to call our mitzvot. And I'm going to share some words on this portion from Rabbi Carrie Chaplin, rabbi at Beit Shuvah. I understand this, I believe, is her last Shabbat at Beit Shuvah, and we wish Rabbi Chaplin well in her next adventure. I'm sure it's going to be an exciting one. But she talks about Mishpatim this way. Mishpatim begins, "These are the rules that you shall set before them," and continues on to a series of laws about how we ought to behave towards one another. The laws start out not with physical injury or with property damage, but with something more personal to the Israelites than any other topic: slavery. When you acquire a Hebrew slave, the Torah says, the slave shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th year, the slave shall go free without payment. And that's the book of Exodus, book of Shemot, chapter 21, verse 2. But why begin with slavery? Because these laws are personal. They're not some esoteric philosophy of right action, and they're not some distant authority telling us what to do. They are an experience that the Israelites and we people who are enslaved in some ways ourselves know personally. We know how to be slaves, even intergenerational slaves, to some false god. What we don't know is how to be free. These laws are here to teach us how to act as free people. And this very first law teaches us not to turn around and return to Egypt, not to re-enslave ourselves or to enslave someone else, because that's just how the world works. This first law says something about slavery never imagined in Egypt. It says, a slave is a human being. And that, quote, "this is just how the world works," is nothing but an excuse for bad behavior. How often we use some version of that phrase to excuse our own behaviors. This is just how it is, or this is just how I am, or I've always been like this, or I didn't have a choice, or more recently, that's just the way it is, deal with it. The Torah teaches us that unending intergenerational slavery is how things were, but you Israelites, you can do things differently. You have a choice. You can take what you've learned from your own slavery and make it better, not only for your own life, but also for the culture of community and even the world. Ultimately, it's up to you. When the Torah says that these laws are placed before them, it means that the law, this better way of living, is placed before each one of us. And then we decide what to do. We decide whether we want to live in old and destructive and dehumanizing patterns of enslaved behavior, or whether we want to follow these laws that value our own and everyone else's freedom. This choice to do better or not is our freedom. This is our power, and these laws are showing us how to use that power skillfully. Audre Lorde taught in her speech at the 1983 March on Washington, quote, "Your power is relative, but it is real. And if you do not learn to use it, it will be used against you and me and our children. Change did not begin with you, and it will not end with you. But what you do with your life is an absolutely vital piece of that chain. If you don't learn to use your power skillfully, not only will someone else use your power against you, but you will use your power against you too. If you do not learn to use your power, the power of choosing to do better, you will destroy yourself and allow others to destroy you. And you will set up the next generation to do the same. That's what it means to be free, to know your power and to use it well for your own sake, for the sake of the people around you, and for the sake of the people in the generations that follow after you. The words of Rabbi Kerry Chaplin. Shabbat Shalom. And as I say Shabbat Shalom, it is, in a way, an acknowledgement that this may not be a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat of peace for some members of our community, some members of our wider community. And I say that because there is anxiety in the wider Jewish community, in the wider community of women in our country, because of some of the challenges that are being placed to a woman's right to choose in our country. And I mention this specifically this evening because it is what the National Council of Jewish Women have called Repro Shabbat. It's a Shabbat where women all over the United States are drawing attention to the challenges to a woman's right to choose, to the challenges to reproductive rights for all peoples. And with that spirit in mind, I want to offer you a prayer on Repro Shabbat that the National Council for Jewish Women has shared with us. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, God of our ancestors, we affirm that you have created each of us in your sacred image, endowed with the inherent right to dignity and autonomy. We ask that you guide us towards a caring and loving community and nation that reveres this dignity in each of us. We affirm that reproductive freedom, the sacred right to own the personhood of one's body, is a fundamental part of a just society for which we strive for in your name. We ask that you endow us with the strength and resolve we need because the path that lays ahead is challenging, and we all need resilience, strength, and courage. We ask that you protect the most impacted and marginalized among us because it is they who are most at risk. We do this work in your name, God, because we are the compassionate, loving creations of a compassionate, loving, and just God. This is holy, sacred work. May our country become a place of liberty and justice for all, and may our care for one another include care and respect for each other's right to good and affordable health care, including abortion care, and the right to live safely and securely as we each follow our path of conscience and the God we each do or do not believe in. And let us say together, Amen. We also at this time in our service pray for the health and well-being of everyone in our community, but we turn our focus especially to those who are particularly in need of healing. So if you are following along in the Siddur, I ask you to turn to page 253, or depending on whether you're in another edition, to page 371, 253 or 371, for our Misha Berach prayers. If you are with us online and choose to share a name of someone who you are particularly focusing your healing prayers on in the chat, I invite you to do so at this time. Misha Berach Avotenu Mikor Abracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessing, and let us say, Amen. We ask for blessings of healing for Rebecca Gilman, Anna Fields Austin, Sue Toback, Paula Steinbach, Rosalind Lefkowitz, Helen Weinfeld, Pam Poliakov, Connie Shapiro, Kathy Blumenfeld, Caitlin Antrim, Judith Bosworth, Kathy Brewster, Jennifer Rudin, Marion Schneiders, Kimberly Zimmerman, Brad Holland, Beatrice Cadden, Meg Silton, Serena Postal, Bobby Kay, Marilyn Freeman, Robert Strober, Marilyn Lubarsky, Ira Quatcher, Ellery Einstein, Ken Mitchell, Patricia Kramer, Bavini Feldman, James Cecile, Esther Besperis, Joan Morse, Nomi Kravitz, Craig Sachs, Simon Saul, Blair Pollock, Myra White, David Grossman, Daniel Brewster, Lori Snyder, Jeremy Noller, Charity Razada, Mike Klein, Lily Morrison, Reed Gratz, Sarah Coachman, Richard Handley, Barbara Fass, Jessica Calderwood-Kubel, Joel Beasy, and Burton Gershman. As I mentioned, if you have a name you'd like to share, please do so in the chat. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, So before we get to congregational announcements, we have an announcement of the new month. We're on page 261 or 379. Yehi ratzon milfanecha, Yehi ratzon milfanecha, Adonai Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu Imotenu. שתחדש עלינו את החודש הבא לטובה ולברכה, ותיתן לנו חיים ארוכים, חיים של שלום, חיים של פרנסה, חיים שתהבנו אהבת תורה ויראת שמיים, חיים שמלאו מירת משאלות ליבנו לטובה. Amen. Our God and God of our ancestors, may this new month bring us goodness and blessing. May we have long life, peace, prosperity, a life exalted by love of Torah and reverence for the divine, a life in which the longings of our hearts are fulfilled for good. Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon Yeh b'yom Revi'i. The new month of Adar Rishon, the first Adar, begins on Tuesday evening and Wednesday. I understand that Gary Gilbert is joining us virtually, so at this time we say Shalom, Gary, and invite you to share some announcements.
Thank you, Kenner Bush. Thank you for Shabbat Shalom, first off, to everybody, both to Kenner Bush and Dr. Polovoy and Scarlett in the sanctuary, and to Shabbat Shalom to all the members of our community, close by and far away. Thank you to Cantor Bush and to Dr. Polovoy in leading us in services this evening, and for Dr. Polovoy's elegant musical offering. And Mazel Tov to Scarlett and her family on reaching this important milestone in your life, particularly under these less than ideal conditions. So well done to you. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I bring you greetings and hope that everybody is well, particularly after the fierce and ferocious windstorms that at least we here in Claremont and the neighboring towns experienced last Shabbat. This is definitely a much, much calmer Shabbat. I only have one announcement for this evening, and that is brought to us by the Adult Jewish Learning Committee. The Adult Jewish Learning Committee invites you to join Dr. Professor Tammy Schneider as she reveals and regales us with the texts and traditions surrounding King David. In this series, Dr. Schneider will answer the question, will the real King David please stand up? The four-part series kicks off this Wednesday, beginning at 7:15 p.m., followed in the next 3 Wednesdays after that. For more information on how to access this these online presentations, please consult your weekly update or contact the Temple office for more information. Believe me, you won't want to miss this. So Cantor Bush, I will throw it back to you and wish everybody Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Gary. It's so grateful that technology allows us to be both here and there, as with the exception of Scarlett and Randy and myself and our wonderful streaming technician, Claudia. We have not welcomed the congregation into the sanctuary due to our concerns about COVID. If you follow the news, at least in LA County, you may have seen that the latest wave seems to have peaked. And we here at Temple Beth Israel, with Pikuik Nefesh being a primary value, a concern for the well-being of all of our community, are taking it basically 10 days to 2 weeks at a time, determining whether or not we are yet going to be welcoming our community back into the sanctuary for communal worship. At the moment, we have not made that decision. We look forward to making that decision in the near future. We certainly look forward to Scarlett's participation in a couple of weeks at her bat mitzvah and the Friday night preceding that. But just please watch your TBI emails and the other communications from our synagogue, so you'll have all of the up-to-date information on when we will be comfortably resuming more in-person engagement. So thank you. My own thanks to Dr. Polvoy, and as I mentioned, to Claudia as well, and to Scarlett and her participation today leading up to the big day. It's great to have you to experience you in person and not only virtually as we did last week, and which also were terrific. So we move to close our service with Aleinu L'Shabeach. We're on page 283 in our Siddur, and or 282 rather, and then or 586 depending on which edition. And if you are able to and comfortable doing that at your homes, I invite you to rise as the ark is opened. L'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei gedula liotzer reishit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot hadama, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287, 591. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו Be seated if you have arisen. We take this time to remember those who have passed from our midst in recent days or at this time in seasons past. We particularly recall the recent deaths of Beverly DePrisco, mother of Max Retzloff, grandmother of Reggie, Jake, and Danny, and of Jim Aiken, father of Christine Aiken. Those of you who are members of Temple Beth Israel should also be aware that Joe Kummerman, the father of TBI member Howard Kummerman, grandfather of Josh and Marissa passed away earlier today. The funeral announcement was distributed. That will take place on Monday, and there will be a virtual Shiva on Thursday. All of the information is in the email that was sent out this afternoon. If you are remembering someone, I invite you to put their names in the chat as I share the names of those for whom it is the anniversary of the death in our community. We remember the yahrzeits of Max Bellman, Lou Charloff, Meyer Gernitz, Lenore Newman, Karen Clayman, Alice Aldred, Ethel Rosenthal, Amon Thal, Rose Ades, Alfredo Diaz, Alice Ducheneau, Pauline Harding, Sarah Rabinowitz-Krinsky, Sally Showman, Esther Skopp, Abraham Weber, Lillian Lee Falk, Sylvia Grossman, Gussie Goldie Silver, Evelyn Zoller, Abraham Blumenthal, Dr. David Brown, Robert Edwards, Dan Carmen, Irving Schifris, Matthew Barthold, Johanna Jody Colbin, Frida Goldberg, Mitchell Gould, Larry Harris, Louis Hirsch, Helen Hollander Rosen, Gary Leach, Fred Weiss, Morris Jacob Eiseman, Bobby Sue Ginsburg, Vera Gutman, Hyman Lisker, Jake Medorsky, Diana Metlitsky, Isidore Nagby, Harry Projector, Maria Rebun, and Molly Singer-Sangbank. If you are in a time of mourning or observing a yahrzeit, I invite you to rise as you are able as we recite words of Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, which you'll find in the prayer book on 294 or 598. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon u'vyomechon u'b'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'l'olmei al-maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yatadar v'yatalev v'yatalal shmei dekudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Yisrael, and to all humankind, to which we all say, Amen. We will close with Beyado. If you are following on the Siddur, page 321, or the alternative page number would be 625, bottom paragraph. Virtually hold out your arms and your hearts, if only to recall and to mimic the closeness and the connectedness we feel when we're able to worship in the sanctuary together. Beyado, bottom of page 321. Beyado akiduchi, be'eni shan ve'ahiram, be'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li velo ira, be'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li velo ira. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand. Beyado akiduchi, be'eni shan ve'ahiram, be'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li velo ira, be'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li velo ira. So we'll close this evening with Kiddush and Motzi. So if you have a cup of wine or juice handy, I invite you to join me in our blessing over wine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri agafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zechar letziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai v'kadesh HaShabbat. Chayim. We also have a motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you again to my compatriots here, to Randy and to Claudia. Thank you to Scarlett for gracing our service with your presence. And we will see you all next Shabbat. And if not before, joining us for Havdalah tomorrow night at 6:45, as well as our Zoom Siyum on Monday and Wednesday at the same time, 6:45. Shabbat Shalom.